Hi, everyone. From 1Route, I'm Jeffrey Ross, and you're watching the 1Route RoundUp, the show that spotlights individuals making a positive difference in the telecom industry. Today, we're joined by Dr. Lee Scargall, currently the Managing Director of RiskConsulting.biz. He's previously held positions such as the Group Director of Revenue Assurance and Fraud Management with 1Route, as well as Cable and Wireless Communications, Risk Manager at T-Mobile. He is a true advocate for Cleethorpes and part of an amazing restoration project of the 422 English Electric Lightning. Lee, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. You know actually quite a lot about myself. You must have been doing your research there on my background.
Let me tell you, I've done a little bit of research, I will admit, and I've decided there's not enough real hard-hitting questions being thrown at you, Lee. We need to come up with something a little more in depth. So are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. Ready as I can ever be.
The real question is, do you have your coffee? Yes.
I've got my coffee. Here it is, look.
We got
coffee.
My
Nespresso.
What are you drinking today?
It's just a Nespresso shot.
Ah. Do you have a preferred brand?
Not really. To be honest, Jeffrey, I'm only having coffee because you wanted me to have a virtual coffee. I'm an Englishman, right? So I normally drink tea. Yeah, so nice jasmine tea or a peppermint tea.
Okay. We'll get to that in just a minute. But I will have to tell you, I need to send you some Black Rifle coffee. It's a U.S. company here that I'll ship some over to you. You know, I'm not necessarily endorsing them, but that is really good coffee. So Black Rifle coffee, we'll get you some of that. Well, so Lee, we're gonna jump right in. One thing that I would love for our guests to explain, how did you end up in the telecom industry? Can you walk me through, kind of in a nutshell? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or was it just something that you fell into? I would love to hear how you wound up in telecom.
So it wasn't something I woke up in the morning and said, I want to work in telecoms. It's never like that. It's actually quite a long journey to where I get, but it probably starts in about early 1990s. And I was actually into Formula One. I love my Formula One racing. And around about 1990, they started to introduce electronics into the car. So you had things like traction control, active suspension, and you could really see the difference that electronics were making in terms of the lap times going around. So I thought, wow, this is really cool. I want to get into electronics. So 1993, I went to university and I studied electrical and electronic engineering, but by happenstance, that was around the time that mobile communications were coming in. So a lot of my course modules were digital signal processing, encryption, wireless communications. So I kind of specialized in those particular areas. And then after I did my degree, I did my PhD, and that was in video compression. So that was kind of squeezing video down speech channels. So very early days of things like FaceTime, Skype, that type of thing. So that's how I got into telecoms, mainly out of my interest in electronics. And then from there, I left university. I went to work for Deloitte Consulting, and I thought, oh, this is management consultancy. This sounds pretty cool. I'm going to get involved in this. So I joined Deloitte Consulting. I was part of their communications team, and that was in the early 2000s. And this was quite an exciting time because you had 3G coming on stream, you had the internet, e-commerce, this type of stuff. So part of my first jobs actually were involved in 3G license bids. So we would go in as a team to operators across Europe, and we would kind of basically put the business case together of how much they should pay for these licenses.
Okay.
And then after they got awarded the licenses, they then said to me, would you come and actually help us implement 3G? So think around about, it was 2000, 2001, I was Vodafone UK's product manager for 3G. So I absolutely loved that job. I was working in the marketing team, thinking of new ideas. What can we do? Video calling, music streaming. And we were starting to work with a networks team to try and put all this in place. But then something really happened, actually, something not far away from where you are right now, Enron. So we had the big problem with Enron, and I'm kind of watching it on the
I think a lot of people had a big problem with Enron in the end.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of watching it on the news and I'm thinking, well, this isn't really going to impact me. But then one of the recommendations was you cannot provide consulting services if you're an auditor of a particular company. And by unfortunate circumstances, Deloitte at the time, they were providing both to Vodafone. So they made a decision. They thought the accountancy business was a lot more valuable to them. So they decided to withdraw the communications team from Vodafone. So myself and about 90 other people, we were made redundant almost overnight. So I lost my job. And I saw an advert it was online. It was regarding a revenue assurance consultant for, at the time, it was a company called 1-to-1. And I didn't know anything about revenue assurance at the time, but I understood how networks are put together. And obviously with my consultancy background, I had the right kind of skill set. So I applied for the job and luckily I got invited to that interview, and I was interviewed by two kind of industry veterans, Julian Hebden and Tony Sarney. So they both. So you know Tony. So I got interviewed by them, and they said, "Look, you don't really have any revenue assurance experience, but you do have the right skill set. So we're going to take a risk on you. We're going to bring you in for 3 months, and if you do okay, then we might renew your contract. If not, it'll be the end of your contract." So
there's a risk assessment always going on, whether it's for telcos or for interviewing. Yeah, always a risk assessment.
Yeah, and here I'm 20 years down the line, I'm still in touch with these guys. So that was how I basically fell into telecoms, and in particular revenue assurance. And I guess that's kind of stuck with me for the last 20 years. So if it hadn't been for Enron, then I probably would still be at Vodafone doing some really cool, sexy marketing stuff.
Yeah. I think that's a really good positive spin on the fallout of Enron. So it ended up well for you. Absolutely. So I am curious, with all your gained experience through revenue assurance and fraud management, do you see any trends that seem to not go away, or anything new on the horizon that involves the revenue assurance fraud management areas?
Yeah, so I mean, after T-Mobile, I then went to Cable and Wireless. I think you kind of covered this in the intro. I picked up risk management there, and then obviously at Redo, I picked up fraud as well. And these days, I'm probably spending more of my time in cybersecurity. So kind of lateral, kind of sideways steps. Now, interestingly, when it comes to the topics of fraud, the thing which really frustrates me, Jeffrey, is, I've been going to these conferences now for 20 years, and I still see the same topics on the agenda: Wangiri, IRSF, SIM-boxing. And, we've been discussing this for 20 years now, yet we still haven't got it under control.
That's I will say, some of the conferences that you and I both attended together, there's typically a session at the end of the kind of like this, picking the brains of people that have been in the industry for a while, the experts in the industry. And I'll never forget, we were at a conference and the question was asked, where do you see revenue assurance and fraud management in the next 10 years? And one of the individuals answered really just hit home. And he said, I don't see any change. I mean, it was an honest answer. I'll give him that. But it was one of those like, wait a minute, why? Why are we not seeing change? You know, what can we, because I don't like that answer, you know, for lack of better words. It's like, we need to change. So I 100%, you know, that's one of those things that needs to happen. I do wonder, have you seen any in all your consulting over the past few years, have you seen any older types of fraud that have kind of crept back up because no one's looking, you know, in the rearview mirror?
I think that there's always the risk that that's there. I think, I mean, just to go back to, you know, we have to understand, why do we constantly have, why are we dealing with Simbox or IRSF now 20 years on? And I think part of that is we actually have innovative solutions to detect it and to try and prevent it.
Absolutely.
But you have the, you know, it's the innovative ideas of the fraudsters who actually change the ways, they change the mentality, they change how they do, you know, it's a constant game of cat and mouse in that regard in terms of fraud. But it is a bit depressing, I think, to think that we're still dealing with the same issues 20 years down the line. Now that's on the fraud. Revenue assurance on the, I mean, 5G coming in, 5G revenue assurance, to me, I think it will look pretty much the same as 4G revenue assurance for consumer. I think where you're going to see a lot of change on the 5G revenue assurance is around the enterprise solutions. So things around network slicing, quality of service. How do you kind of assure that? And I think that's where people are going to have to be coming up with some new ideas around how do we automate this in terms of the revenue assurance controls? What types of controls do we need to put in place? So I think that'll be quite interesting there. One of the other areas which always, I mean, anybody who knows me will always know I constantly go on about the lack of chief risk officers in telcos. So in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, you have chief risk officers, but you don't tend to get chief risk officers across Europe. And I haven't seen many in the US either.
And that's really interesting, because I agree. There's, at least here in the States, you know, that's not a I shouldn't say a well-known position, but it's not a well sought after position. And it's definitely something that's needed. And I look at it more from my days of working in the banking industry, you know, where risk is essentially what they're in the business of risk, and how that could be applied better in the telecom industry. Yes.
I don't think it's understood very well. So if you're a listed company in the UK, then you have to provide your top risks as part of your annual report. That has to go to your shareholders. You have to state what your risks are. But from my experience, in particular across Europe and the UK, it's just a box ticking exercise. It's something they sit down once a year and they go, oh, what are our risks? Let's put them down and just put them in the annual report. And they're actually missing a real trick here. Now, don't take my word for it. Take the researchers' word for it. And if you look at all the analysis that has been done, they've looked at the maturity of the risk within particular companies. And when they've done it in the past, they've looked at the share price, the corresponding to the share price, and then they've looked at the maturity assessment again, maybe 2-3 years later, and they've seen if there's any kind of improvement in the maturity. And the research says that if you can improve your maturity from a level 1 up to a level 4, then you can actually add 25% to the value of your business. And this is on average. So you know, there's not many things out there which you can do to add or increase your value by 25%. And risk management, it's not an expensive thing to do. It's just about changing the culture of the organization. And to do that, it does take time, but it's not very resource intensive.
That's really interesting, and to kind of correlate to that. So you have been fortunate to work in quite a few different places around the world, and this is where we really want to help our audience gain perspective. So such as this with the chief risk officer being employed, being utilized in other areas of the world. From your perspective of during your time at some of these telcos in different countries, is there something, or is there a perspective looking at it from, let's say, from the Middle East or from African perspective? Is there something that the rest of the world could take away from their perspective? Or also, is there a type of, are there issues, I should say, that they deal with that maybe the rest of the world does not deal with, but could help out with? It's a lot of questions at you at one time.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through there, but all I can say is Africa tends to lead the way on risk when it comes to telecommunications. I think there is quite a lot of risk over there in itself in general. You have lots of currency risk. You have mobile money as well. I mean, they are the leaders in mobile money over there. And you do get quite a lot of innovative kind of fraud, which kind of originates around Nigeria, around those particular countries in Africa. So they are very at the forefront of fraud.
The fraudsters are very innovative. Unfortunately, you kind of, you wish they were working for the other side, but and that, I guess, would you agree that maybe that helps with Africa's innovation, is that they're combating an innovative fraudster?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it comes from. But just to go back, what do I see across the world? Myanmar is a place, or Burma is a place where I've worked for a long time. I was at Ooredoo Group, responsible for risk management when we actually went in to Myanmar in 2013. We were one of the few companies who got a license there. So Ooredoo got one, Telenor got one, Viatel got the other, and of course you had MPT who was there originally. Now, just to come back to the Myanmar and the role of a chief risk officer, is that if you look at Myanmar, nothing has really changed in Myanmar. In 2013, the military ran everything. It was a puppet government in there. We all knew that. And in 2022, the military is still running everything anyway, right? So nothing has really changed.
Right. But
Telenor have just exited that country, and they've had a write down. I think it's about $780 million they've had to write off. Now,
US dollars?
US dollars, 780 million US dollars as a write down. Now, somebody somewhere needs to go, it's the shareholders who own the company, right? It's the shareholder. Right. Somebody needs to go back and explain, why did you go in 2013 if you've decided to pull out? I get it that Telenor, it's a Norwegian company, they've had a lot of pressure from the EU, but surely they would have understood these risks if they had a chief risk officer. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So it sounds like for 2022, from your perspective, the big push really could be in the areas of risk, in the form of risk officers, and the benefits behind that. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things which the value which a chief risk officer could bring. When they were going through the due diligence, somebody might say, there's a red flag here. Yeah. Or, we have a serious problem here. Similar thing in the UK. If we look at Huawei and the government, they made a decision to rip out 5G, Huawei kit. Now, I and a couple of other commentators who you look at the situation on the ground, you can see this thing over a period of years. You can see what happened to ZTE. You had the Trump administration coming in, who was really going for China. They singled out Huawei, and you could see this embargo coming. Yet, the procurement departments in these, in particular in the UK, in these telcos, they're still ordering Huawei kit. The decision is still there to go with Huawei. They award contracts, 5G contracts to Huawei. So had they had chief risk officers, I think they would have had more kind of insight into these particular areas and would have been able to steer clear of them. Because that in itself, that's cost the UK operators about £2 billion.
Goodness. That's insane. Lee, I think you and I were discussing earlier how, and I feel like we could carry this on for quite some time. Unfortunately, my video people are telling me that it's I have to limit my time, but maybe another, we'll do a part 2 with you. But I think as we were discussing earlier, you'd probably agree that in these moments, as we interact with people or interview or do interviews, conferences, you don't really get to know somebody. And as somebody that we really want to spotlight in the industry, we want people to know who Lee Scargall really is. So what's occurred is there's some scientists over at the Late Show with Stephen Colbert that came up with a questionnaire that supposedly will let us know who you really are deep down. Now, the scientists at the 1Route labs have tweaked it just a little bit. So the question is, are you ready to answer the questionnaires? 15 questions, and it'll let us know who you really are. Are you ready?
15 questions. Is this some kind, you're going to try and psycho-profile me?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. There's not enough hard-hitting questions in the industry, and here we go. You ready to begin?
Off we go.
Off we go. Dr. Lee Skargall, what is the best sandwich?
Well, it's the one I had about 20 minutes ago. It's a Subway spicy Italian.
Ah, there you go. Going with the sub. What is one thing you own that you really should throw out?
One thing, a pair of Holy socks.
But they're comfortable, right?
They are. I've had them for a while. I like them.
All right, Lee, what is the scariest animal?
The scariest animal for me, cats. I hate cats.
They are suspicious creatures.
Yeah.
So
they are, but isn't there a book about cats are they're secretly trying to kill you or something?
I don't doubt it. I don't. You kind of have to sleep with one eye open with those, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Lee, apples or oranges?
Apples.
That is correct. You know why?
Because you can make cider.
Because you can put peanut butter on apples.
You have peanut butter on apples?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't put peanut butter on oranges.
That's true, but I've never had peanut butter on apples. Usually on a slice of Rivita, but
you could take just a slice of apple, dip it in the peanut butter, take a bite, give it a try.
I will do. I'm going to try that tomorrow.
Have you ever asked anybody for their autograph?
No. So I actually met Lewis Hamilton a couple of years ago, and I wanted to get a book, and I wanted him to sign the book, and I kind of mulled it over, and I thought, should I or should I not ask him? And I thought it's a little bit kind of low class, so I kind of scrapped the idea, and I shook his hand and didn't ask for his autograph. But yeah, that guy's got some big handshake.
Still an incredible experience.
Oh yeah, yeah. I took the family along as well. They all enjoyed it.
What's your favorite action movie?
Action movie. I don't really watch action movies.
Nothing with.
I would say a Spider-Man. I would say a Superman.
There you go. There's action.
When I was young, I think that was one of the first films I went to see. Superman in about 1979, I think, from that era.
What is your favorite smell?
Now you see, I've lost my smell because of COVID, right? So
You have to reach back into the memory bank. And what did you used to like to smell?
yeah, I mean, this is it's bizarre. I like the smell of lavender.
Oh yeah, it is calming. What is your least favorite smell?
My least favorite smell, probably Lynx deodorant.
Do you remember what the first cell phone you owned was?
Yes, it was a Nokia. I think it was a 3010 or something.
Was
Or
it back when they were getting smaller and smaller, or was it like
it was quite a brick.
okay?
It was quite a brick. Yeah. But yeah, if I saw it, would be about this big.
Oh, okay. Big. Yeah. It's flat or sparkling?
Sparkling.
I mean, who doesn't like a party? I mean, it's, my kids like the flavored sparkling water, and they call it hot water, which is, I guess, because of the bubbles, they call it hot water, which is horrible advertising for a water company. Hey, would you like some hot water? But
yeah, it doesn't really go. But no, I love sparkling water.
Coffee or tea?
Well, we've already discussed this. I'm
right.
a tea man. Yeah.
What? Have you ever had sweet tea? This is off topic, but having been to Mississippi and working on the Lightning Project, have you ever had true U.S. Southern sweet tea?
I have. I tried it on my last trip. So last month, somebody managed to persuade me to have some. Is that okay? It was nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of tea. It's a lot of sugar. It'll stain your teeth brown if it's made right. But what is the most used app on your phone?
Probably CoinGecko, cryptocurrency.
There you go. You get one song to listen to for the rest of your life. What is it?
I don't know. There's so many.
You only get one.
I can't pick one because there's so many good ones. I'm like you. I have quite a wide genre of music that I listen to.
I guess the question is, would you pick one song for the rest of your life, or would you just pick silence?
Yeah, I quite like silence, actually.
It's healthy. It is. Yeah. What number am I thinking of?
3.
No. Describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
The rest of my life going forward.
5 words.
Energetic, exciting, fruitful, happy, and longevity, I'd say.
Fantastic. Dr. Lee Skargall, you are now known to our audience and to whoever ends up watching this. All that's left to do is roll out the red carpet, stare in the camera, and tell us what's on the horizon for you.
What's on the horizon for me? Well, quite exciting things regarding my hobby, which is, we spoke about the Lightning Project. It's looking like we have a funding line. So we've got some investors who want to come on board. We've got lots of companies interested in using the aircraft to launch satellites into space. So we actually have a viable business opportunity for this particular aircraft. So I think there's exciting times for my hobby. Career-wise, I'm just going to keep plowing on, keep going out there, keep pushing the mantra. And hopefully one day somebody might appoint me as a chief risk officer.
That's what needs to occur. So for the audience that's watching, we've got a chief risk officer ready for you, ready to go with Dr. Lee Skargall. Thank you so much for your time today. And to the audience, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like us, do all that kind of stuff. And I look forward to the next episode. Dr. Lee Skargall, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeffrey.